KUNC and the NPR network. This is In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner, in today for Erin O'Toole. Like a lot of people nowadays, artist Rick Dallago is very invested in selfies. But Rick, who's a painter, thinks about selfies differently than someone who just snaps a quick self-portrait with their phone. Rick paints key moments in history and then paints a cell phone into the image. In one painting, a man takes a selfie in front of the Twin Towers on 9/11. In another, a man uses a selfie stick to capture the moment when JFK was assassinated. And other paintings show iconic images like Michelangelo's sculpture David, reduced to a snapshot on a tiny cell phone screen. Rick's work is on display in a new show called Thirst Traps. It recently opened in Denver at the Lab on Santa Fe. Rick joined me to talk about the ideas behind his paintings, like the one with someone taking a selfie as the 9/11 attacks unfold.
I think it brings a lot of history into modern times. If 9/11 happened now, even like a generation later, there would be a lot more people injured, hurt, killed from stopping to take selfies of themselves as it's unfolding. You know, I'm not mocking 9/11. I'm sort of mocking the way that we sort of insert ourselves as the performer and the witness to all these events. Like it's rubbernecking on acid. We not only have to stop and look, but we have to stop and document it and then post it.
Rick, many of the paintings in Thirst Trap include smartphones, either taking pictures of other things like famous paintings or people taking selfies. Where did that idea come from?
It came from traveling a lot, and it initially started when I would go to an art gallery and people would be taking pictures of themselves in front of the artwork as though to prove that they were there. It just tickled me. And as far as my art goes, I like to paint things that had sort of a social twist to them, like Norman Rockwell did, or the cartoons in The New Yorker. I've always wanted to just put a mirror back on society a little bit. That's where it started.
Well, let's talk about the paintings in the show. One painting shows someone using a selfie stick to capture the chaos immediately after JFK was shot. But the photo taker is smiling at the camera obliviously. What made you want to paint that image?
Well, first of all, I've always been fascinated with the concept that there was one person during the JFK assassination with one little Super 8 camera that was the only image that we have, and that if it happened today, there would be hundreds of millions of hours of footage from every possible angle for them to discern. The character in that painting is a gentleman that I saw in, I think in Chicago. He was taking a selfie of himself, and I just liked the look that he's like everyone's dad. And I think as far as the smiling goes, I think he's happy that he captured the moment. You know, it's almost as though like he's not oblivious, but he's even sort of boasting about it. And I think that if, you know, the thing that happens now is a lot of the news that we see on TV are from people's phones.
Yeah.
And that war is closer to us because people can get really intimate. We're not just relying on reporters or on news people, but real people that are really in the thick of things. And everyone has the ability to document anything that they want all the time, all day.
You touched on this idea that if you didn't take a photo of it, it's almost like it didn't happen. How does that show up in your work?
It's basically the old, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, doesn't make a sound. If we had a Cobb salad for lunch and didn't post it, did we eat it?
Right.
And I think that we have sort of become a society where we are both the witness and the performer, where we insert ourselves into a lot of narratives. And I think it plays into a lot of how we see the world and how we have to put ourselves into every scenario at this point. Like if you don't take a selfie of yourself in front of the Grand Canyon, were you really there?
Another painting in this show called Son of Selfie shows Jesus Christ holding up a cell phone to document his own crucifixion. That's a provocative image. What made you want to paint that?
Well, I was trying to think what would be the ultimate selfie, and then Jesus came to me. It's interesting. Like, I know it's a loaded topic and that people are going to bring a lot of their own life experience to it.
Absolutely.
But I love what they say about it. Most people laugh at it. And some people say, oh, he's the original influencer. He inserts himself into every narrative. He crashed every wedding, every party. A priest was looking at it and he said, he's trying to get a hold of his dad one last time. I love hearing what people bring to it. And some people get mad.
Sure.
That's expected. I understand. And my retort to them is always, well, if Jesus is coming back again, which he is, the second coming, I'm sure he'd have a smartphone.
Images like the crucifixion or the JFK assassination, there's a shock value to them. Do you want people to come away with a sense of shock?
I do, because the one thing that I'll say about the work is it provokes a lot of discussion and a lot of dialogue. And I like that. And if someone says something really brilliant about the piece, then I'll steal that as my artist statement, because I'm open. I'm open to it.
I have to ask, do you take a lot of selfies of your own in your spare time?
None. Zero.
Really?
Zero. No, and I've been in places where all my friends are doing it. It just doesn't appeal to me. Like I don't have to prove that I had a Cobb salad for lunch. I'm fine with that. But I take a lot of pictures of people taking pictures of themselves. So a lot of my subjects in the paintings are actual people that were taking pictures. They're documenting themselves in front of something, but then I'm documenting them in front of something else being documented.
It's complicated.
I think that the way that we like see the world and we experience the world is extremely complicated right now.
No doubt. No doubt.
Whereas we have a foreign policy being tweeted as it's happening live, and I think that that's really something that I can't see it being anything less. I just think it's going to become more and more accelerated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I worry that there's the narcissism to it also.
One of the most striking paintings in your exhibit shows a cell phone screen zoomed in on Mona Lisa's smile. You do a similar thing with images of other famous works of art, like Michelangelo's David. What's the idea you want to bring across with those paintings?
Well, as a painter, there's nothing like looking at the original artwork, and even a photograph of a painting never really conveys the sort of mastery of it. And I just think that that's, the new art form is how we document the art form.
Sure.
And then how we post it, or like how it's labeled, or how it's hashtagged. That's the new art, really, is like the art of the art.
Artist Rick Dallago's paintings are on display in Denver at the Lab on Santa Fe through July 19th. You can see some of the images from his show at KUNC.org. By the way, there's another episode of In The NoCo I want to mention. We all hear about how arts education is declining in schools, often because of tight budgets. Well, several of our talented reporter friends in the KUNC newsroom spent months reporting on this. And they also found some creative teachers who are making sure students learn about art and music and theater. So last week, the In The NoCo team compiled all of their reporting in one podcast episode. And that episode's waiting for you right now in the In The NoCo podcast feed. Go check it out wherever you get podcasts. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Brad Turner. Thanks for listening.